Yo guys, what's up? It's Adam here. I Can't See the Guy. We're here on the Movie Vault to talk about a whole new different franchise. Well, not particularly a franchise, but a marathon of some kind. Talking about Jean-Claude Van Damme. Now, I love Jean-Claude Van Damme's movies. Well, most of them anyway. There's a few bad ones which I could mention. Couldn't stand him in the movie Street Fighter. I thought Black Eagle was poor, but the majority of films that Van Damme has made that I've seen have been fantastic martial arts movies. And the one I want to talk about that's definitely up there, one of the best ones that he did, was this movie right here, Kickboxer. As you can see, I own it on Blu-ray right here. Definitely got to be one of Van Damme's best movies that he's done. I mean, it's not my favourite Van Damme movie. My favourite Van Damme movie is a really good question because there's just so many great ones. I'll probably have to say it'd have to be probably Double Impact or Death Warrant as my top favourites. I mean, I could list the first three best ones of my favourites, and this movie Kickboxer usually comes at number 4 or 5. But still admit this has definitely got to be one of Van Damme's best work. In his prime, doing all this kick-ass kickboxing and all these great moves that you see him doing in this film during the training. Epic. I understand the sequels to this, but I'm not really interested in the sequels. I mean, to tell you the truth, a movie like this doesn't really need any sequels. I mean, it's just better off just being a standalone movie. From what I understand, the sequels as a remake, but I'm not interested in any of that. I mean, this movie and this movie alone, it's just all you need to tell a good story, to tell a great film. You know, Van Damme in his prime doesn't get any better. Again, everything about this movie worked. I mean, it's a great plot. I love the choice of settings in this movie. You know, the locations. I really love the music. I thought all the characters were believable and they all put their heart and souls into the characters. All the actors did. Tong Po, the villain in this movie. A likeable villain, but again, he was one of those villains that you wouldn't mind seeing Van Damme kick his ass because he does some unforgivable things in this movie, like paralysing his brother, raping Van Damme's love interest. You know, he does terrible things in this movie, and at the end of the movie, which is a great fight, by the way, you're like, go on, kick Tong Po's ass, kick his ass. You know, we want to see something bad happen to him. So he was one of those villains that, although you'd fear him, you just want to see something really bad happen to him because he's that much of an asshole. You know. I mean, basically what this movie's about is you got Van Damme and you got his brother. His brother is a kickboxing champion. And he's very confident in himself. You know, he's travelled all over the world. He's got a championship. He's basically travelled the world doing all these kickboxing matches, basically. Until he meets Tong Po. Okay. Now, both of the brothers get along. From what I understand, the brother spent more time with the father, or the mother, and Van Damme spent more time with the father. I think it was the father. I think those two mix the way around. But one spends more time with the parent more than the other. You know, they do have a good bondship, but they wasn't really together at birth, I don't believe. Well, anyway, they go to the location where the brothers meant to face Tong Po. And Van Damme is backstage, and he hears like these thuds, like these doosh, doosh, and looks and it's Tong Po training, and he's literally kicking the living shit out of these pillars, these concrete pillars, you know, kicking them, punching them, making all these dents in the pillars, in the concrete, and Van Damme's like got a look of disbelief, like, you know, and this is going to be his brother's opponent. So straight away, Van Damme's concerned. He's like, I don't want my brother fighting this guy because he's going to have one hell of a fight on his hands. He's going to be a fighter like no other. And basically, he's fearing for his brother's safety, basically. So he sees his brother, he warns him, saying, I don't want you to fight this guy. There's something about him. I've got bad feelings about this. But his brother, being slightly cocky, but more important, like overconfident, says, no, got to fight him. And he gets his ass kicked, basically. and Tong Po does the unthinkable, cruel thing, and he paralyzes Van Damme's brother. You know, we learn that he's paralysed when he gets taken to a local hospital. And Van Damme is now vowed and determined to fight Tong Po to get revenge of what he did to his brother. Okay. Now, I've already mentioned that I was more than satisfied with the characters in this movie. There's this one character that's introduced to us that makes friends with Van Damme. And Van Damme says to him, he says, I've got to fight Tong Po. And he says, you're not ready, you're not trained enough. But he does his best to help him. And that's when we get introduced to another character, Dennis Chan. Dennis Chan's his character. Saying that he's the only guy who could train you to beat somebody like Tong Po. You know? You got to train, you got to work yourself up, you know, you've got to get yourself ready for the fight. Although everyone is totally against the whole idea. So that's what Van Damme does. He sees the guy, and I must say, throughout the most middle part of this movie, it's all training sequences about Van Damme being trained. And there's some funny moments, there's some unique moments. But I'd have to say I really enjoyed the training scenes. I mean, to compare it with another movie, I wouldn't say the Karate Kid movies are the best way to describe the training scenes, because in the Karate Kid we had all these unique training scenes, like Mr. Miyagi teaching Daniel wax on, wax off, paint the fence up, down, sand the floor. I'd say the best one to relate is the Rocky movies, basically. You know, the Rocky movies, because the Rocky movies have some great training sequences. And I could say the same thing about Kickboxer, you know. There's a scene where Van Damme is training underwater. There's a scene where Van Damme has meat tied to him and he's being chased by a dog. You know, the scenes where he's kicking the hell out of his tree. I mean, there's a point where his brother is now in a wheelchair and comes to watch his brother's training. And even he's trying to tell Van Damme, you know, don't fight this guy, don't fight this guy. But Van Damme's like, no, gotta fight this guy, gotta fight this guy. And at the start, he finds all this training really difficult, but is more than determined to try and train to his best so he can beat this guy to get vengeance for his brother. We get introduced by Van Damme's love interest in this movie, and I think it's his trainer's granddaughter, I believe. You know, there's a scene where these two guys are trying to get money out of it from this stall. Van Damme kicks them guys' asses. You know, and I'd say the most hilarious part of the movie was when his trainer took him to that bar. He gets Van Damme drunk and tells him to go and dance with the girls. We see a bit of a comedy side from Van Damme where he's shaking his ass, you know, doing all this weird dancing. But there's a scene where he fights these couple of guys in the bar also. So this movie has a mixture of everything. It has a serious side, it has a comedy side. Again, we have savage moments like his brother being paralysed. That was a savage moment. But we also see a scene where Tong Po rapes the woman. And that was a savage moment. But the woman is not only disgusted, but she's also not willing to tell Van Damme what happened because she doesn't want him to break his concentration. You know, and straight away when he does that, you know, you're like, we want to see something bad happen to this guy, you know. We want Van Damme to kick his ass. I mean, that's got to be what the viewers were saying. I mean, that's what I wanted to see when I saw this movie the first time. I was like, I can't wait for this guy to get his ass kicked. And what a way it happened in the ending scene, you know, that cool ending scene where Van Damme's fighting Tong Po in that unique old-fashioned way, you know, with the glass. And fucking cool. But this movie worked. I mean, it worked for Van Damme being in his prime. And one thing that really stood out about this movie, you know, Van Damme really showed how athletic he was, you know, and how talented he was with his martial arts. Because this scene where he's doing slow motion kicks on these coconuts and during the training, you know, the way he's doing all these maneuvers, the way he's moving, doing all these martial arts. So Van Damme gets the opportunity in this movie to just actually show how flexible he is and like how really talented he is, like how much he knows about martial arts and all the combats and all the fighting. So And he did a really good job of being the good guy, basically. You know, when he fights Tong Po at the end in that kickboxing match. You know, everything worked. You know, everything worked about this movie, and I really like the music. I also said that I like the choice of settings in this movie. I thought it was really beautiful, like the buildings and the locations of all these settings. That was really good. I mean, as for the end sequence, you know, everyone's concerned for Van Damme's safety, you know, but still believe Tong Po is going to give Van Damme the same fate as his brother, you know, paralyse him. You know, there's a scene where they put their fists in these glass, you know, where they're going to fight with glass on with their knuckles, basically. We see a scene which I didn't particularly like, where Tong Po abuses this dog, you know. One thing that gets to me is animal cruelty. But again, he gets his ass kicked, which is the positive sign about this movie. So many unforgivable things that this guy has done, and he gets what's coming to him, basically. I mean, again, I'm not talking about the actor, I'm talking about the character. I mean, I thought both guys in this last fighting scene did a great job of putting on this convincing performance, this convincing fight. I mean, it was back and forth fighting. I mean, I'd say for the most half of it, it was Tong Po getting the better hand of Van Damme. You know, because Van Damme was told by these guys that not to, you know, lay into him, you know, until later on in the match, like. But when he gets his comeback and, you know, he makes Tong Po bleed, you know, he's doing all these punches, he's doing all these slow motion kicks, that kick-ass music playing at the same time. You know, it was just all well put together. You know what I mean? I mean, just seeing this movie moments ago just makes you really want to get into all the rest of the Van Damme movies, basically. I mean, like I said, I saw my first Van Damme movie when I was about 10 years old, and that was Double Impact. And even seeing that movie, I was like, I've got to see more Van Damme movies. So, even if you're not familiar with Van Damme's movies, or with any movies that you're not particularly a fan of, I mean, just seeing this movie alone, Kickboxer, one of his best films, will get you into the Van Damme movies, and it'll make you see you want to check out more Van Damme movies. You know, like I said, this movie came out in the year of 1989. You know, the best decade in movies, basically, at least in my opinion. And again, I know I keep going on about Van Damme being in his prime, but we've seen several movies with Van Damme, you know, where he's a little bit older. Age catches up with you, but what's unique about this movie is that he was in his prime and he was, you know, great to show off his ability side, you know, basically, while he was still young. I mean, there's some other films that people complain about where he's too old for the roles, but those are reviews for another day. I'm just checking out some more information about this movie. Budget of $2.7 million. Made $50 million at the box office. Impressive. Directed by David Worth. Yeah, like I said at the start of the review, this movie is spawned by several sequels, but again, the sequels I don't want to check out. I mean, why would you want to see sequels to a movie like this? I mean, it's a standalone movie. It's got to be a standalone movie. You don't need to see sequels to a movie like this. You know, there's some movies that just should not have sequels, and if I can have a perfect movie that doesn't need any sequels, it's this movie right here, Kickboxer. For definite. I mean, you can get away with making some sequels to some certain movies, but not to a movie like this. So overall, everyone did a fantastic job. Jean-Claude Van Damme, great at playing Kurt Sloan. Dennis Alexio as Eric. Dennis Chan, the trainer. Michael Kissy, I think that's Quissy. That's Tong Po. Yeah. You know, with several other people playing the characters here. We have Haskell Anderson as Winston Taylor. One thing I want to mention before I end this review, everybody, I just want to talk about the soundtrack real quick. I really enjoyed the music in this movie. the ending music to the fight. Yeah. I mean, it did well at the box office. I already mentioned that it made like $50 million at the box office, so with a budget of $2.7 million, so I'd say got its money's worth. But there's not much more I can say about this movie other than it's a must-see, everybody. Definitely one of Van Damme's best work. I mean, like I say, I've only seen a few movies with Van Damme in that I didn't like, but this is definitely got to be one of his best. But it comes up like number 4 or 5 in my favourites list. I will talk about more Van Damme movies in the future, especially the ones with my favourites and the ones I, of course, didn't dislike. But that's basically my review, everybody, for Kickboxer. Please check it out, everyone. It's a must-see. And don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe. Thanks, everyone. Peace out.